Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of 2026. If you're listening to this on January 1st, take a breath. You made it through 2025. For some of you, it was a beautiful year. For others, it maybe felt like a war zone. Either way, I'm proud of you for being here and for choosing to start a new year with intention, reflection, and maybe a cozy pair of pajamas and a hot drink in hand. In today's episode, I'm breaking down the 5 things you need to hear to make sure 2026 doesn't become a repeat of 2025. These are the exact patterns I saw in my executive clients all year long, and the shifts that separated the ones who ended December grounded and present from the ones who ended it burnt out, depleted, and ready to crawl into a hole. This isn't about judgment, it's about data. December is your report card, and it's telling you exactly what needs to change. So settle in. Let this be your New Year's reset, your moment to reflect, recalibrate, and design a year that feels lighter, more supported, and more sustainable. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Alignment Podcast, where high performers come to grow without stress, shame, or burning out. I'm Mintu Lam, and I'm here to help you work smarter, live fuller, and feel like yourself again. If you're tired of running on empty, book your complimentary assessment call at higheralignmentconsulting.com/program, and let's figure out what's draining your energy and what you can do to start feeling happy and peaceful once again. You can find the link in the show notes. Now let's get into the episode. Well, guys, Happy New Year. It is January 1st, 2026, and you made it. You made it through 2025. And for some of you, that might have been easy. For some of you, that might have been a war zone. So either way, I commend you for being here today and being blessed enough to see the start of another year. Again, I know it wasn't easy for everybody, but just taking a moment to appreciate that we're here for another day and we're getting to start a fresh slate. Have a fresh slate, have a fresh canvas, and design a whole new year to however you want that to look. Hopefully, if you're listening to this right now, you're moseying around the house in some sweats and pajamas and got a coffee or a hot chocolate in hand. And, I want this to be an episode where you can just really soak in what I'm saying. And if you're spending your New Year's Day with me, I'm so blessed and grateful. So thank you for being here. But, I was really reflecting on 2025 for myself and for my clients. And, you know, the saying goes, as we all know it, is like, if you don't change, nothing changes. And I've been having a lot of conversation about how December is a report card month on how the year went for you, and not report card in a judgment way, but report card in a way of its data collection, and you can really tell what kind of deposits you're making throughout the year based on how you felt in December. And so there's kind of 2 buckets that you'll fall into. The first one is you were present and regulated and had the capacity to connect with your loved ones and even at work and just be not always super calm. Like, you can have your moments, but very grounded and present in how you move through your day. And then the other group is the group who were in the middle of the chaos and felt every push, pull, and tug of it. You were a little bit more reactive, your sleep suffered. Um, Even though you maybe wanted to be present with your family and friends throughout the holidays, you didn't have the capacity and probably just felt like you wanted to curl up in a hole and disappear. And there's no judgment if you fell into that bucket, and there's no judgment if you were in the first one. Obviously, that's usually the goal for most people. But most importantly, it shows you where the majority of your energy deposits were this year and what type of patterns you were living throughout the year. Because whatever bucket of patterns you were making deposits in, that would have resulted in how you felt in December, right? And I also want to make mention of the fact that December is a hard month. Like, especially if you're in the business corporate world, it's the end of Q4, you're dealing with year-end wrap-ups, you're planning for Q1. It's a shorter month because there's holidays involved. You have more demands socially, again, because of the holidays, but the work doesn't stop, and you have all these things being asked of you, and not only just like your normal workload, you have people asking for other stuff because again, it's Q4 and now maybe they want it for their books, or there's just all these other extra things that get stirred up. And there's kind of this energy of panic, you know? And so I think everybody kind of feels the chaos to an extent, but again, it's just how you navigate it, right? So today, what I did was I came up with a list of 5 things that I found a lot of my clients needed to hear this year, and things that I obviously needed to hear at some point in my career and life when I was really going through just burnout and heavy depletion. And I wanted to share them with you today in hopes that you can take those and run with them for the year. Even if you just take 1 or 2 or 3 or all 5, they are concepts that concepts, thought processes that I know I needed to hear in order to finally shift some patterns so that my December could be more peaceful and joyful and all the things Christmas is supposed to be and New Year's is supposed to be. Um, get to a point where I could really sit in what that season meant, and I'm at that point in my life now, which I'm super grateful for, but I know I dealt with quite a few clients this year that weren't in that place. So, again, wherever you are, hopefully you're relaxing with a cup of hot cocoa or coffee, just sit back and relax, and I'm gonna share these things with you in hopes that you can really use them as North Stars on how to make sure your 2026 isn't like your 2025, assuming that you fell into that bucket of feeling like you wanted to crawl in a hole and escape the world. And if you didn't, keep listening because maybe you'll have a friend or a family member or a spouse that or a colleague that you want to pass this episode along to. Like if you were blessed to be in that bucket of you've done the work and the healing to be able to be present and aligned in your life in December, amazing. Kudos to you. Majority of people have not. And so if you know someone, feel free to pass this episode along. So, what I've learned along the way is that when it comes to stress or burnout, it does not care about your like calendar or your goals. It cares about your patterns. And so you can have super ambitious goals. You can have, just pretty average ones, which are okay too. But the difference between people who end up burnt out versus who don't are the patterns that they carry into chasing those goals or building their year or their life around those patterns. Okay. So when we look at designing our life in a different way, we have to really look at ourselves and our awareness around our patterns and figure out what's working, what needs an upgrade, or what needs to go. Okay. So, the first point that I wanted to share with you that I've had to share with a few people this year is you're not just tired, you're under recovered. Okay. So let's dive into what this exactly means. Yes, are you feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and tired at points? Of course, I'm not taking that away from you. But it's not just a busy season. It's not just that you have a lot going on. It's the fact that your body has been running at a marathon s like, you've been running a marathon at a sprinter's pace. Like, you've been running on the red line. You've been pushing that throttle pedal to the metal all year long. So, when you're in that space, of course you're gonna be tired, right? Of course you're gonna feel exhausted. But the fix there isn't that you just need to take things off your plate. The fix there is that we need to understand that rest and recovery are necessary for being productive. Okay? When it comes to exhaustion and having a lot of things on our plate, we tend to think that that's the reason why we're burnt out, right? It's like, well, I have this and this and this and this to take care of. But we've also all gone on vacation before and came back feeling like $1,000,000 just to end up feeling burnt out and overwhelmed again a week later, if that, right? The thing there is it's not about taking things off your plate or being less busy. It's about the fact that amongst all the things that are asking for your time and demanding your time is you're not getting proper rest and recovery. Weekends aren't enough. Holidays aren't enough, okay? When your body is constantly running on depletion, you end up in survival mode, right? So if we want to feel lighter in 2026 and we want to be more present and not get to a point where we feel like we just have to crash in order to rest. Like, I remember I used to go on vacation and I would get there and I would have to sleep like 7 hours a day on the beach in the sun because it's all I had the capacity for, because I wasn't giving my body proper time to rest or recover when I was home. I would wait till I would just push and push and push and push, and I'd get to the beach and then I'd crash. And again, think that I would come home feeling better, and I would for like, again, 3, 4, 5 days, and then I end up in the same boat. So, if we want to genuinely feel lighter throughout 2026, if we genuinely want to, like, we can have our moments of up and downs, but for the most part, stay at a really balanced state, you need to incorporate recovery into your patterns, into your lifestyle. Okay. That might mean taking a 10-minute walk up from your desk during the day. That might be taking 10 minutes to transition from home to bedtime at night, or sorry, from work to home time at night, having some type of ritual or practice that you do to transition your body out of fight or flight and being on that red line to a more balanced pace when you get home so you can be more present, right?
Okay, if you're an executive who's craving more clarity, happiness, and a sense of real inner peace in your day to day, make sure you hit follow so you never miss an episode. This show is here to help you lead, succeed, and actually feel good while doing it. And if something resonates today, give it a like and share it with someone else who could use a little bit more calm in their life too.
The key there is it's not about just like taking a break to give yourself a moment to do less things. It's about incorporating recovery into your productivity plan. Okay? Knowing that proper recovery, you ask any athlete, anyone who's required to perform at a high level, recovery is key. Okay? Thing number 2 that we're going to share. Your schedule is not the problem. Your boundaries are. Okay? Now, here's the thing with boundaries is, it's a very popular buzzword out there right now. There's lots of talk about it, but where I find people get boundaries wrong is they think it's about the other person and what they will do. When boundaries are about what we will do and what we will uphold, okay? So for instance, let's say one of your boundaries for 2026 is going to be I'm not answering emails past 6 p.m., okay? And then for the first few weeks of this month, your boss emails you every day at 7:30, okay? And then you go, "He's violating my boundary. I told him I'm not answering emails past 6 p.m." And you complain about how he's violating it, and then eventually you respond because the email's there. Again, the boundary is about what you will do, not what they will do. So if your boundary is not answering emails past 6 p.m., when that 7:30 p.m. email comes in, it's up to you whether you're going to honor the boundary or not. Are you going to respond just because it's there, or are you going to leave it and get to it the next day at work, right? When with high performers, although it always comes from a good place, we're so prone to sacrificing ourselves and saying yes for the betterment of everybody else. And is there a time and place for that? 100%. Okay. However, we need to be strategic. And every time we say a yes to something that violates a boundary or goes against or or a yes that self-abandons ourselves, our boundaries start to get eroded and our ability to uphold them and our ability to feel confident in setting them. And then soon we don't even have the capacity to set boundaries anymore. We don't even know what that means. We don't feel confident doing it. And then again, we end up burnt out and dysregulated, right? The reality is you only have so much energy and time in a day. And so you have to be the protector of that. You have to be the one who really um, is intentional about where you're spending that because it's valuable, right? So the better the better you are at saying no, or the better you are at honoring your boundaries, the better your life gets. And I'm saying this from experience, right? When you have good boundaries in place and you uphold them, you become more effective. You become more strategic and logical. You become better at what you're supposed to be great at instead of taking all these other little things on that really aren't a part of your role, and again, wasting energy towards that. So, again, point number 2, make sure that you're honoring your boundaries in a way where it's about what you will do, not the other person. And if something tough comes up where you're like, "Wow, they're really putting me in a tough space," and you have to make a decision, that's the place you wanna be in. Yes, you might have some guilt. Yes, you might have some fear come up, but ultimately the power is in your hands whether you uphold the boundary or not, right? When we make boundaries about what other people will do, we give all our power away. Point number 3, your body has been trying to warn you and you've been ignoring it. All right. I have this conversation all day, every day with people. Okay. And for the record, I ignored my body for years too. Okay. But the reality is burnout, um, fatigue, neurological diseases, like illnesses, anything. By the time it becomes a physical symptom, it's been sitting in your emotional body way longer than you realize, okay? So, what I see often here is people who are having very obvious symptoms of breakdown in the body, but they've normalized it. And again, I normalized it too. I used to throw up almost once a week from stress. I thought it was food sensitivities. It was just I couldn't process stress in my body, and so I couldn't digest food properly. I was having broken sleep. I would sleep maybe 4 hours a night, waking up at all hours of the night thinking about work and God knows whatever else. Um, I used to be super irritable and snappy, and here I am, I think I'm just, like, to the point in making things happen, but no, I had no capacity for connection or patience. I have clients who take really short breaths throughout their day, have pain in their chest, have shoulders that are sitting up next to their ears. They, um they're again having a hard time sleeping. I have one client who couldn't listen to people chew chips around him because it was so irritating. Like all these things that we're doing, we've somehow normalized into thinking that this is just how I am. I used to tell myself all the time, this is just how I am. I'm just stressed. I'm just anxious. I'm just always like super wired and can't slow down. Like I used to think that was a normal behavior when really it was my body telling me that it was fried. My nervous system was fried. Okay. And the thing is when you're so busy and when you're in survival mode, these signals almost feel like an inconvenience because you realize that if you pay attention to the signal, you're gonna have to do something about it, but there's 80 other million things that need your time and energy right now, so of course you become last on the list and you self-abandon, right? And then when you do that though, it's not like these symptoms go anywhere, they just get worse and worse and worse to the point where then now again, maybe it becomes an autoimmune disease, or I've had a couple clients who were healthy young men who had stress-induced heart attacks. Right? I have clients who've had bad IBS issues. Um, it can manifest in so many different ways. And again, it's not because you're broken, it's because you've been ignoring your body for so long. So for 2026, if we want to make sure that we're not only prioritizing our health, but staying competitive and staying like at the top of our game, listening to our body again has to become part of our productivity strategy. It has to become part of our success strategy. Because if you don't learn to pay attention to these signals, your body will break down on you. I'm just telling you right now. And might not happen in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s or your 50s or maybe even your 60s, but it will happen. Every time we abandon ourselves for the sake of productivity, we pay for it on the back end and we lose ourselves. And that shows up again in our health. It shows up in our happiness. It shows up in our relationships. Like we pay for it somewhere. And you might not be realizing it yet, right? But if you wanna stay competitive, if you wanna stay at the top of your game, but you still wanna enjoy your life in the process, learning to listen to your body and your nervous system has to be factored in. Okay? And understanding that this is your machine. This is your car. If you're a I always talk about F1, if you're an F1 driver and you're a great fucking driver, but your car sucks or it's not fine-tuned or it's not performing the way it should, it doesn't matter how good of a driver you are, you won't win the race, right? So we need to take care of the driver and we need to take care of the car, right? But if we constantly ignore all these signs, eventually we'll break down into the point sometimes where it's really hard to get yourself out of it. Where if you take this reframe into 2026 of knowing that listening to your body is your competitive edge, think about how much further that will get you along. When you prioritize regulation, you will naturally become more productive. You will naturally start to be able to see bigger picture. You will naturally be able to problem solve at a higher level because you're regulated in your body.
All right, guys, quick pause. If this episode is hitting home, I created a free burnout quiz that takes less than 2 minutes. It helps you pinpoint exactly how burnout shows up for you and what shifts you can take to start feeling happier, calmer, and more in control. Most executives tell me the results feel eerily accurate, so head over to the link in the show notes and you can take the quiz there.
All right. Number 4. This might be hard for some of you to hear. Willpower won't save you this year. And I remember when I first understood that, it only clicked because I realized that I was already, like, slowly dying inside, if I'm being honest with you. Like, high performers double down on their discipline, right? And their resilience and their desire to win and their desire to fix a problem and, like, failure is not an option. I'm gonna find a way to make this happen type thing, right? And that's great. We need that. That is so important. But it can't be the only thing that you rely on because when you are, like, purely relying on willpower and grit, eventually the engine will die out again, back to the car. It will die. So, it's not that you need more discipline, it's that you need more capacity and you need a new operating system that supports you in a way to have more capacity, okay? High performers are so programmed to think that they need to push harder, or if they do more, they'll get more, or they'll be able to have more. And what I witnessed this year more so than any other year is how that is not always the answer. Like, it's this fine line of like, yes, you need to be able to like do what you can, but at some point you also need to know that pushing more requires more support, right? And and if you're relying strictly on willpower, that will eventually collapse under chronic stress. Like, you can't out-discipline a dysregulated nervous system. And you can have all the tools and all the biohacks in the world. You can do it all. And I've seen many people have all those things and do all those things. Like, I have worked with many people where I've come into the mix and they're already going through to therapy. They're already taking the supplements, they're already working out 5 days a week. They're already having 6 a.m. mornings. They're doing all these things, all the biohack bro stuff, right? Yet they can't sleep at night. They're super irritable and cranky with their family and friends. They constantly overthink. They rely on caffeine or weed or alcohol or sugar just to carry them through their day. They don't even get up to eat lunch because they feel trapped by their desk. Like, I've seen all the things. And so if you're at that point where you feel like you've just been pushing and pushing and pushing and it's no longer working, that's your sign. That's your sign to do something differently. That's your sign that your body needs support. And think about any system in any business. Support is key, right? Like, the reason you have different systems in place and different departments in place is so that they can support the overall goal of the business, right? And when the different departments and the different systems support each other, guess what? Everything runs more efficiently. Right? Your body's the same way. You have a system for how your body processes stress. But again, if we go back to question number 1 or report card number 1 of December, and if you're living December in a way where you're ready to crawl in a hole and hide from the world at the end of it, your system isn't running efficiently. And so we need to upgrade it. We need a different strategy. So for 2026, don't think about just doing more and trying more. Think about trying things differently. Think about how can I support myself more versus push myself more, right? That subtle tweak alone will change so much in your patterning, right? Because A, you can't do it all yourself. It's just the reality. B, we're living in a world where we're getting perpetual stress from all angles. So even if you wanted to do it all yourself, you're taking on stresses that don't even belong to you. And C, you don't get a badge of honor for doing it all yourself. And honestly, again, the best athletes, the best performers in the world, they all have teams around them, right? Like no one's expecting the best athlete on the team to do everything himself. He's got a trainer, he's got a nutritionist, he's got a cook, he's got a massage therapist, he's got a physiotherapist, he's got a a mental therapist. Like he has all these people to support him to be the best version he can be or her. And so it's no different from us, right? So instead of try more, think try differently. Instead of thinking do more, think more support. Okay. And point number 5 to make sure 2026 is different than 2025, piggies right back onto that. If you want to change your life, you need support. When we're dealing with burnout or extreme stress, we tend to go into isolation because we don't have the capacity to connect. And even if you want more connection, if you want that hug, or you just want people to understand what you're going through, when you're in that phase, it's this weird dynamic of you like pushing people away or isolating yourself, even though you know that's not what you need. But again, your capacity shot, so you can't deal with it. True healing needs support, right? And, you know, if you could have fixed it alone, you would have by now. Like, I tell my clients all the time when I get off assessment calls, and if someone's like, "Oh, I just need to process a few things," I'm like, "Okay, totally get it." But, if you go away from this call knowing that this is exactly what you need, what your brain is gonna do is it's gonna try and convince you that you can do it yourself. And maybe you can. I did it myself, but it took me about 3 or 4 years to really get myself out of it and to heal, right? Where if I would've just learned to ask for help sooner, I wouldn't have had to suffer for so long, right? And the reality is as high achievers, we're the problem solvers, we're the ones that everyone comes to for advice, and so asking for help feels so foreign in the body. We can feel guilty, we can feel weak, we can feel like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna bother anybody." But support is not weakness, it's efficiency, right? Like asking for support, again, all the systems communicating, that makes you efficient, right? And burnout is exactly it. Burnout is a system issue. It's a stress processing system issue. It's not a failure. It's not a weakness. It's not you can't handle it. It's purely that the way your body is processing stress is not effective right now. So the reframe is you don't need to do everything on your own, and you don't win anymore or get any extra notoriety because you did it yourself. Like that's that's just a bunch of bull crap. Really. Use 2026 as the year that you start to leverage help and get support and get tools and systems and strategies in place so that you don't have to suffer the same way. What would happen? What would happen if 2026 looked like you stopped operating from exhaustion and actually started operating from capacity? You stopped reacting from fear and started responding from clarity. You can do all that with the reframes I just gave you. Honestly, in doing this all the time I have now, it's not rocket science. It's actually quite simple. It's just about being consistent with it. So, as a takeaway for today, because I know my audience likes action steps, I would pick one of those 5 things that I just gave you and choose one action that aligns with whatever one you chose, and just commit to doing it for a week, right? I start all my clients with small micro upgrades because when you can do micro upgrades consistently, it compounds very quickly in the body. And, one thing I commonly hear with my clients is like, I changed so much in the past 3 months and I don't even realize when it happened. Right. So if you can pick one of those truths that I just gave you, you choose one action aligns with this one that you picked and you stick to it for a week, just see how that shifts. Right? And that's the only place you have to start. But as you're sitting here listening and you're coming off a crazy December and you just had a bunch of turkey dinners and ham and sugar cookies and all these things, like the world's a little bit more quiet right now. And if you're in my part of the world where it's winter, we're kind of hibernating right now, it's cold. This is the time to really make a choice and a decision for how you want 2026 to look. And my recommendation is like set an intention for how you want the year to feel. So whether that be, you know, calm, grounded, balanced, joyful, free, confident, just like how do you want to feel through 2026? And then build things around that feeling. Build a life around that feeling. Use the things I talked about today to bring you closer to that North Star, right? Because sometimes we have too many goals. I want to do this and this and this and this. And honestly, none of us respond well to that. We're human at the end of the day, and we do better with simplicity and structure, but we still need something to follow and an intention to help us, make decisions from and waver or come back to when we're wavering. So for 2026, to me, it always comes back to freedom. I just want to feel free in whatever I'm doing. And to me, that's then making decisions that are the best for me and my family and not getting sucked up into what the rest of the world expects of me or how I think my business has to look or how I think my relationship has to look or whatever the case is. It's about living a life that feels in alignment with me and then making my decisions based on that. And so for you, choose what you want that feeling to be and then build a life around that. Build baby patterns, build micro patterns around that. And when you make micro patterns around that, eventually they lead to bigger patterns, and that's when your life really starts to change. Just today's January 1st, you don't have to jump into it right away, but just really sit with it and make a choice that you're going to do something different this year. And whether you decide to do that on your own or you finally decide to ask for support, I'm here. Reach out on Instagram, reach out on LinkedIn, book an assessment call. Like 2026 is the energy of a fresh start. It's a 1 year numerology, which I have an episode coming out about that too with Megan Alton. And it's a year where you really get to decide what this next chapter of life looks like. And you can have it all. And when I say all, I mean you can have a great career, a great home life, and still enjoy every moment of it while still being ambitious, while still being productive, while still showing up for people. But if you don't feel like that's possible, if that feels really far away from you right now, it's just because you need a different strategy. But you deserve to be happy. You deserve to live a life in alignment. You deserve to feel good when you wake up in the morning. So I'm here for you. I'm rooting for you. And let's make 2026 even better than 2025 was.